All right, all right. Let's get back into it. Ken, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good. How about yourself?
I got to go do a little pitch competition as soon as this is over. So I've got lots on my mind at the moment.
The entrepreneur's journey is never done.
Always busy, always busy. Ken, by the way, we are live on Twitter. Did you request yet?
I don't
Oh,
know.
in any event, let's jump right into it. Welcome back, everybody, to the Created Economy. This is our weekly interview series. We'll be interviewing voices and players from the creator economy at large, discuss key topics impacting the growth of the creator economy. We do go live on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. You can find out more over at created.show, the official show page. We do stream on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Twitter.
Facebook.
Facebook. Didn't I say Facebook?
I don't know. Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn,
And Twitter
YouTube,
Spaces
Twitter
as
Spaces. Yeah.
well. So feel free to tune in for whichever experience is the optimal one for you. That may be video or audio. Also, we do have longer form content over at createdeconomy.com in case you are interested in reading the show notes afterwards or finding some of the links maybe that we share. So feel free to tune into there as well. Real quick, let's just move through a couple of slides here that we do have. I'm going to remember to do it. This is episode 14. We are excited to be here. Do remember that we do have 2 shows a week. This is our interview series on Wednesdays, and on Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time, we will also have Created Briefs, which is our news show, rounding up the weekly news from the creator economy. So we'll see you on Friday if you're missing this or watching it later. Also, feel free to follow us anywhere and everywhere. We're Created Economy on all the things, so you can find us quickly. We'd appreciate your follow, your sub, and whatever it may be. So, without further ado, Ken, today we've got our friend Steven Sunmonu. Did I just mess it up? I can't remember. Steven is joining us today. We originally had planned, it was actually going to be Antonio Gary Jr., who you've all met in the past. He was on previously talking about Spore. But originally, we were going to have Antonio and Steven together, but we weren't able to, Antonio couldn't make it today. But this was I think our scheduled, maybe third guest actually, or show, but since then 14 episodes have happened, or 13 episodes have happened. But that's how it works with trying to find the right schedule. But we are excited to have you here, Steven. So let's bring you into the experience.
Hey, Steven, how's it going?
Doing well. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't know, so Steven is one of the co-founders of the Black Creator Crew. We did meet originally on the Means of Creation Discord. Had some interesting conversations. I think you popped into maybe After Dark one episode, and that's how we got to chatting, and it was a great convo.
That's exactly right.
So
very metaversy.
Absolutely, right? So before we go any further, though, Steven, please tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, where you based, et cetera, all the fun stuff.
Sure, appreciate it, guys, and fantastic show so far. I've been tuning into a lot of them, so congratulations on being number 14. Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet everybody. I'm Steven. I'm from New York. I was born in Nigeria, but grew up primarily on Long Island and now preside in Harlem. Have been in the media entertainment space since college. Cut my teeth at a major record label that has since been subsumed by Universal. Then transition over to Viacom, where I was at MTV and Nickelodeon for a while. Was at Live Nation doing corporate strategy for the COO. Went over to graduate school to, again, study media and entertainment and kind of government, but through the lens of media entertainment. And for the last couple of years, I'd say last 4.5 years or so, have been doing M&A and private equity investing in the media entertainment space. And, the creator economy and, NFTs, all that stuff is very much the melange that everyone's talking about. I spend a lot of time thinking about that. So a lot of topical stuff to talk about tonight.
I was going to do a quick follow-up, I guess.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of interesting things there to discuss as well.
For sure.
But we also were intrigued when you guys launched the Black Creator Crew.
That's right.
Can you give us a quick, top-level view of what is the Black Creator Crew?
Yeah, so the Black Creator Crew really came out of a need that Antonio and I saw. Being someone who is obviously visibly diverse, we didn't really see a lot of communities and places that spoke to the challenges and the issues that creators are facing. And I would say that The immediate catalyst for it was there was a New York Times article I think Taylor Lorenz wrote about creators not getting their due, and there was a New York Times documentary that came out about Black creators wanting to boycott TikTok, and we were like, dude, this is it. Like this is obviously a very pertinent moment. Obviously, for our American viewers, this is coming almost a year after George Floyd, and so the zeitgeist was very much topical around this. But again, it's kind of like that startup thing where that a need exists, but you don't understand why it's not there. You kind of just do it yourself. And so Antonio and I, we had been talking about kind of creating this movement, this organization that ultimately is not only a space and community for Black creators, but really a resource for them. A resource for them to commune and collect resources among themselves, but also to put them in touch with, hey, something got taken down on my YouTube channel. How do I get best in touch with YouTube to effectuate that change? Or down the line, hopefully some funding, right? A big challenge for creators is around funding. And so particularly around minority creators and creators of color. And so, yeah, we just thought there was a need for it. And for both of us, it's also an experiment, and, we're loving it so far.
So, Steven, I kind of want to, before we dive a little bit deeper into the Black Creator Crew, because I think there's a lot of interesting insights we can get from there. Yeah. I want to know a little bit more about yourself, right? You talk about, how did you get into the creator space? I know in a way it's because of through your job, through your M&A role, but how has your experience in the media and entertainment space, which is, let's call it more like the traditional space, right? Traditional media and entertainment, which is very scripted. And then like you can kind of say the unscripted, the reality TV shows were pseudo creator, but now you get things on the internet where people are like truly their authentic selves, right? Like America's Got Talent it highlights creators to a certain degree, but this is where you go find the next Justin Bieber, like YouTube and Twitch.
Well, actually, look, Ken, is that a fair description? Like, are those folks creators in your mind? Because when we had Martin on, there was somewhat of a distinction between a musician and a creator. I'm curious,
but are those different?
How do you define the creator? Yeah.
Sure, Steven. Yeah. How would you define a creator?
Yeah, I mean, to me, a creator is not just one who is quote unquote artistic in the sense of music or poetry. Like in some respects, you guys are also creators, right? Mm-hmm. This is an art form. You guys are, you guys have phenomenal equipment. You guys are scripting out stuff. You guys are, kind of broadcasting stuff. In some respects, myself and Antonio are also creators in the sense that we are trying to create a community. We're trying to create a movement. And so for me, the traditional lens, as you astutely mentioned, Ken, around traditional media, it's all been around the creators in the traditional sense of musicians, artists, whatever, but also a lot of gatekeepers. And so I see the creator economy as a pseudo lack of gatekeepers in some respects. Obviously, we know that platforms are tremendously big creators, but, there's been a new movement that we're all taking part of where, like you don't necessarily need to go to a record label to put out a hot song. You don't need to, work at Warner Brothers to create phenomenal film or TV content. And so in the traditional sense, the reason I got into the creator economy, because, as I saw my career being, limited by gatekeepers, I was like, I want to, be with the rebels and hang out with them. And particularly that's where the world is going, right? If you want to scope out the creator economy, it's really about the future of work. Mm-hmm. In terms of how people are being disintermediated from traditional jobs. And, you just want to latch on to really, really big trends, particularly if you're able to help people out.
And then how did you take your experience in let's talk about your media and entertainment side, right? From Nickelodeon, Viacom, all these other things. And how does that inform your analysis and how does that inform what you do at Black Creator Crew to reach out to these creators, these influencers, the people that don't want to be beholden to traditional gatekeepers?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say the way that I look at it is, on one end, it's great to have the big brands behind me because you do get those introductions to people and they're responsive to that because they either want to work with those brands or they know that you understand how the traditional media entertainment infrastructure works such that you can help them out. So that's certainly helpful. And then I would say, because of, the relationships and goodwill that I personally built up in my career throughout, and certainly Antonio's self too, like we can have conversations with venture investors and, my friends and colleagues who are, the chief of staff at big media company or the head of corp dev at X media company. And because they're reading about the creator economy in the New York Times, and there's a friend in me who can say, hey, I have a direct line into, actual creators, they want to be on the cutting edge as well too, right?
Right.
And so that I would say that's been probably the best analysis that, the way that I look at the space is basically helping each of them talk to each other.
All right. Okay. So let's dive a little bit into the Black Creator Crew, right? This is when you announced it a few months ago, actually right around the time when we started broadcasting the creator economy. So that was about 3 months. What is the and you've already given us a background about it, like kind of the foundation behind it. Can you tell us how it's gone so far? Like what's progress been like? And what are you looking for? And how are you enlisting help from partners, whoever these partners are, and how are you appealing to creators?
Yeah, so all great questions. So I would say in terms of kind of how it's been going so far, I think, and this is kind of funny. So, the way that I've come up in the business world has been traditionally through like theory and like, theory of management. I got an MBA from Wharton, got a government degree from Harvard, went to Duke undergrad. So very like traditional, you do this, you do that, you do this. Whereas the creator economy, you guys know this, like there are no rules, there's no gatekeepers, there's no one saying because you did XYZ, you now have the right to do ABC.
Right.
So even throwing up a landing page was like, very much a learning experience for me. And, even putting my face on the website, I was like, oh my God, do I need to talk to compliance or anything? And so the outpouring, honestly, guys, the outpouring was tremendous, both from you guys, but also internally in the group chat or the Discord chat that we're in. But frankly, more importantly, just from creators of color that were just like, finally, yes, thank you, right? And so I found out about so many, not only just like actual artistic creators who were going for this thing, but also builders who were like, yes, we're building the OnlyFans for, women of color who want to get their hair done. I didn't even know that was a thing, but we put the beacon out, we put the bat signal out. So in terms of progress, we've signed up a couple hundred people. It's going great. We need to actually, make sure that we are also building community for them. We're going to set up a private Instagram first because Discords take a little bit to kind of get rolling, as kind of we all know, the one that we're in. We are putting together a compendium, if you will, of resources that say, hey, if you want to start, video blogging, these are the 3 best softwares, or these are the 3 best hardwares, et cetera. So I think right now the first phase is that we basically just want to be a resource to them from an education perspective. Next phase will be then building that community, so that it can be self-sufficient. And then the third phase, the one that Antonio and I are more excited about, is how do we enlist partners to actually help fund and kind of get a lot of these creative endeavors off the ground.
Yeah, because I was curious about like how would you, if you had to label like what Black Creator Crew, I would, because there's a whole bunch of different things that I thought it would be. When you go to the website, it's like a join now. I'm like, join now. What does that mean? Join now. Join now, as in I am a creator. I want to be a part of this. Or join now. Hi, I'm an investor or a builder or a brand, and I want to help out. Reach Black creators or creators of color. Or whoever, like or is it a general thing? So I'm wondering, it's like at first I thought, are you an accelerator? Are you an incubator? Are you a fund? And it seems like, based on what you just said, you're all of those. Like right now, you're just like, okay, we're just going to be this like a high school counselor of sorts, right? and I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion, but it's like, hey, we're going to help you figure this out. We're going to see what we can do, like if we need to play matchmaker, or offer you this assistance tutorial about like how to set up that landing page, or how to reach so and so, or these partnerships or whatever. And then later on, okay, we'll do some sort of we'll have that community, then we'll pair it up, and then maybe do some sort of incubator or accelerator of something of that caliber.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think certainly there's opportunity for us to refine the message a little bit more. Candidly speaking, this was one of those things where it was like a sprint for Antonio and I. We were like, dude, let's just do this. Let's do it right before we wanted to launch right before Juneteenth, which is the
Right.
traditional celebration of when African Americans found out slavery was over in America. And so this is that's June 19th. We were like, June 18th, let's do this. So we sprinted out and do it. We wanted to build in public and kind of just get it out there. So certainly opportunities for us to refine it. And I'd say intentionally we put it as as amorphous as possible externally.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say behind the scenes, we're working to go out to specifically to creators right now to get them on board. And again, those creators tend to be not just YouTubers or TikTokers. We have photographers who've joined, some writers. Yeah, because we find that like certainly visual medium creators are the ones who get a lot of the press and publicity.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them kind of have similar needs where it's like, you just tell me like if I need to find a contract term sheet, like where to look, right? And
yeah,
like, you can kind of like melange a lot of different stuff. So I would say that our general purpose is to be all those things all at once, but certainly as you build a startup, you kind of really want to focus in on your niche, and our niche right now tends to be those TikTokers, like YouTubers that we're talking to in the background.
So to follow up on that, I guess a bit, do you see there's there's been an ongoing discussion about, is the creator economy the gig economy, or is it morphing into the gig economy? Some of what you described feels like some of the essentials of just being a good business person, right? What kind of, I guess, unique, or not even unique, I guess, obstacles just are you seeing are rising to the top in terms of people trying to overcome? And are there any that you feel are unique, say, to sort of like Black creators, maybe that other groups aren't experiencing or are finding yet? Besides discovery, which I get is absolutely, like a huge thing, which, I think the ability, the existence of your group is trying to sort of start to address some of that problem. But like, what's bubbling up from inside?
Yeah, I love that question because it assumes that like if you can solve something for one group, it kind of impacts everybody else. So I'm really excited to answer this question. I would say that probably the number one, or one of the top ones that keeps coming up, is like, frankly, a lot of them aren't business savvy. They're just they're very good at the creative. They're very good at the creative stuff, but they're just not comfortable with negotiation. They're just not comfortable with understanding like, how do I articulate my needs to a brand? And again, not saying we're trying to be like a brand management agency or anything else like that, but even like, can you just basically look over my shoulder as I read through this contract? Stuff like that, where I do that stuff all the time for my job. And I would say a lot of this stuff, it's like half counselors. So going back to Ken's point, a lot of it is just like being that, second opinion, or just being that kind of person who holds their hand, making sure that they're not being taken advantage of, understanding that they know their options are not just this one platform, that you can go to other platforms that are frankly competing for your followers right now. And then I would say the second part that I want to impress upon all creators, not just creators of color, is to frankly know your worth. And that's outside of like brand deals, meaning YouTubers, I would imagine a lot of YouTubers make the vast majority of their revenue, who have kind of pseudo made it from other stuff that is not YouTube, whether it's merchandising or speaker series, stuff like that. And so, I encourage every creator to, use social media, whatever platform it may be, as the top of your funnel. And then you want to siphon, or you want to push some followers and other people towards the more lucrative, higher margin parts of your funnel, which tend to be courses or merchandise or speaker series, etc. And so I would say those are two things that kind of bubble up the most, where like, can you just help me think through this business problem? And then two, how do I monetize off of this other stuff? And it's interesting, so I'm now using that resources to help out college students who are athletes. So I spend a lot of time in the NIL space for work, and they have zero idea, like nothing, like zero idea how to even set up.
It just sort of happened too very quickly, right?
Exactly.
Like suddenly everyone's like available to monetize.
Exactly. So, frankly, this is an experiment for myself and Antonio as well too, of, most of my time I'm talking to CEOs and head of corp dev, et cetera, who like get it. But then talking to a creator, like you need to like, not explain to me like I'm 5, but you have to, put it in terms that they understand. And then I'm using a lot of those key learnings to help actual children out in terms of 18-year-olds. Build bigger.
Quick follow-up related to that, I guess. I've experienced this often, and I've heard this from creators. some don't want to be business people.
That
right?
is true. That is true.
Are you finding that, and have you found any tips or techniques for how to make people sort of understand the entrepreneurial parts of their new lifestyle that they've chosen?
I haven't come across that specifically, but it is an interesting commentary because, frankly, you're also seeing that in the entrepreneurship space as well, too, right? There's been a huge rise of what's called, people who bootstrap or the indie hackers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as opposed to those who want to just do VC funding and go to the moon, right? So it is interesting to your point, Greg, around there's some creators who are just like, yeah, like this is either a side hustle for me, like I don't want to be the Emma Chamberlains or the Jake Pauls or whatever. This is just fun for me. And there are other ones who are just like, I would do it, but I'm either too afraid to ask for help or B, I don't think I can do it, right? And so I think I spend a lot more time with the people who potentially have that kernel of I want to do it. I just don't frankly know how to do it.
Gotcha.
Steven, can you walk us through like some stats, right? I think you've highlighted some of the things that are that Black creators or creators of color have endured on these platforms. You talked about like you referenced, with TikTok. There's issues. There's actually a protest right now on Twitch where streamers are upset about perceived inaction by Twitch on hate raids.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these things that come up, but I don't think people like you hear them in the periphery, and they only come up to the surface when they're big news. But obviously, this is a thing that a lot of people of color endure on the internet. So, but can you give us, based on your research or your analysis, like, can you kind of lay down the landscape, like how massive of a problem is this, and what are the obstacles that Black creators are facing?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have specific stats, but anecdotally, and you can read this stuff everywhere. And again, this happens not just for creators of color, but also female creators as well too. Is that because there is a lack of transparency, using brand deals, for example. There's a lack of transparency around what this brand is paying that brand, and so you have a lot of creators that are just taken advantage of, and that is particularly rife amongst creators of color, where I remember reading about this one story where this brand invited a couple of creators out to, I don't know, some event, and they were all like hobnobbing amongst each other, like, oh, like I got this, I got that, and the creators, they're all basically got the same like brief and everything else, did their work, whatever, and the Black creator finds out that they were paid like a tenth or a third of what everybody else is paying. And so that's just like one anecdote, but there's so many stories where, again, New York Times story, which is where I first found out about this, where, either the brand won't pay the Black creator at all. So to give them free product, which again is not specific to Black creators, it's probably just magnified by that. And then, the person who's not Black is getting actually paid, right? And so that happens a lot. Again, a lot of these brands, they can't afford it, but it's just unfair. It's just really unfair. Yeah. So I think at some point creators definitely need to, band together and find resources and partners that will help them articulate that. And there's a couple companies that are coming out right now that we can talk about. But yeah, I would say that's probably the most rife one in terms of just pay people.
Actually, related to that, I guess, and to Ken's point, there's been several movements or sort of, protest of one form or another. Do you imagine a future where creators are more unionizing in some way, or organizing in a more formalized structure as opposed to sort of ad hoc?
I think so, or at least I can see that. In February of 2020 or 2021, I can't remember. Influencers were officially added to SAG-AFTRA.
That's right. Yeah.
SAG-AFTRA is for your viewers who don't know, that is the Screen Actors Guild. I don't know what the AFTRA stands for, but the Screen Actors Guild, which is essentially like, the union for actors, right? They were added to there not only for health insurance, but just for, lobbying, et cetera. And so that's some part of it. I think there's probably a lot more movement around unionization that I'm seeing coming out of Europe, particularly the UK, where, there are more, how can I say this politely? They're more, coalesced society than Americans are.
More progressive.
Yeah, exactly. let's use that. Let's use that. So I think at the end of the day, probably, and I think, there's some, luminaries in the creator economy space who would love to see that happen.
What's the context though? This is the thing I've always had a little bit of a challenge with is, who are you unionizing against? Right? Like, like a union is sort of like a representative body to someone. Would it be to the platforms then? Or would there be like a YouTube one, or would it like be horizontal? Like, I'm just trying to understand more. What kind of shape would it take if it happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer is certainly still evolving on this, but I think the platforms would make the most sense. So you could have like a TikTok one or one that's specific for that, or you could have it be functioning based, right? Where the comedians all get together or the musicians all get together, right? I think the most prominent one that we've seen, which I believe was cross platform, was the dancers, right? A lot of African-American dancers were like, you are not even giving us the credit for our for our dance moves. So we're not even going to give you guys anything, right? And there was definitely a dramatic drop in terms of usage on, I think it was TikTok, that was a platform, but you also saw that on YouTube. And now there's actually companies now, I saw one startup that is helping creators of like dance move creators actually like copyright their dance moves so that they can actually get some recognition and hopefully some restitution for that. So I think this stuff all evolves. I think down the line, as the internet becomes Web 3.0, becomes a little bit more decentralized, I think the platforms have to have less power, but I don't necessarily know what that looks like in that Web 3.0 world.
Do you anticipate, like, in terms of the evolution, and let's talk like 3 years from now, or actually let's talk a year from now, because the creator economy space moves at a rapid pace, right? Do you anticipate Black Creator Crew essentially, because we talked about like, oh, you're now this, from a high school counselor, a school counselor, let's call it school counselor, or to, an accelerator / incubator / and then event, maybe like maybe its own funding arm, right? Do you anticipate going into advocacy, right? Like, not necessarily lobbying per se, right? But advocacy, where your organization can play a role in shaping these type of things. Like, for example, there was something you said earlier that caught my eye, that raised this question where, there's, you're maybe forming new laws, right? It's like, for example, to Greg's point, how, like, okay, you can create a union, right? It's like, okay, these these Black creators are like, okay, we're upset about, the appropriation of our dances. So we're, some are going to copyright them. But not everyone knows how to do that. Like, if I wouldn't know where to start. Like, how do I patent this? Like, it takes a while to do all those type of things. So I get why I would come to you. I'm like, hey, Steven, help me out with this.
Right.
But maybe there's something a little bit more universal that needs to be set in place from a legislative standpoint. Like, do you anticipate your organization kind of being at the forefront of that and saying, hey, we see this happening from across the internet. We think there should be more protection for them, for creators. And so this is what we are going to advocate for. Like, okay, we're going to advocate not necessarily from a political standpoint, but, from a collective standpoint or something like that. Do you see that?
Well, I guess just what is the future you imagine, right? Like, I mean, obviously I think legislative is great use case, but are there other things you're thinking about, like doing?
Yeah, I think for us, we want to be just as helpful to as many people as possible within the space. So, certainly our number one priority is helping creators out with a lot of the things you just laid out, Ken. So whether that is education, resources, connections, etc. In terms of like, advocacy and changing kind of how the game is structured, I think legislatively, like you're getting to my government degree stuff, like that would be, amazing if I had that power and influence. Like I'd probably be doing a lot of other things too.
You very well could. We'll bookmark this timestamp.
Right?
Yeah.
But candidly, when we launched the creator economy, I reached out to, I have like really good friends from business school who are at TikTok or at YouTube and focus a lot on the creator economy. And I was like, hey guys, like I'm doing this. This is really interesting. Like we're gonna get some really interesting feedback. Like if I do hear of interesting things that pertain to you in terms of how we can, make your platform better for creators, like what's the best way to go about doing that? And they were incredibly receptive to that, right? I don't think that, I think we probably spend a lot of time bashing a lot of platforms, and certainly rightfully so. But I don't think that there is malintent behind a lot of the rules and regulations and policies that these platforms have. They have to put food on their kids' tables as well too, the people who work there. So I think they are open, particularly the zeitgeist and the conversation that's going on. So the long-term vision that I have for that Antonio and I have for a Black Creator Crew is such that we are, I don't want to say like the NAACP or like, that kind of thing, but kind of similar where it's like, hey, like this is a place that this is very much a neutral opportunity to just engage all stakeholders in the creator economy space, particularly to uplift and empower Black creators. But we're not taking one side or the other. We're basically just trying to make it equitable for everybody. And this is an opportunity that, like for example, I would love for YouTube and TikTok and everybody else to fund us, or at least come to our conferences, right? We don't want to pick and choose one or the other.
Right.
So just to practically speaking, I guess, how does it work? Like, what's the structure of the organization itself? Like, are there mentors as well, or are there other parties involved? And like, how do we get involved, to help?
Great question. So again, very much still in building phase. This is very much, I wouldn't even call it a side hustle. It's very much a labor of love. We saw an opportunity and we're going to put our time into it. But, Antonio and I, we have day jobs. So the structure right now is us two, we feel everybody comes in and we'll do like, we do sessions with them to field resources. I put together an Airtable of, resources that I mentioned, the top 3 things you need to know about getting into vlogging, send that out to you. We are in the process of thinking about hiring a social media manager because I'm just terrible at socials. I'm just horrible at it.
It is a lot of work, right?
It's a lot of work. It's so much work. I did not appreciate it. And again, you need to know this about yourself.
Yeah. Everyone who thinks like this creator stuff is easy does not try to like just try 1 week of it. You'll die.
I mean, oh my gosh. And to do that on top of a full-time job and you have like a life going on, it's just crazy. So we're going to hire someone most likely to kind of.
Who gave you a life? You're not allowed to have a life. Come on, man. You got work to do.
Right? Exactly. I'm already burnt out. And then, in terms of the mentor part, I have my own network of mentors and stuff like that. And I've reached out to people who are interested in the creator economy space. And so, once we do have something that's a little bit more concrete around a program, people who actually dedicate time to do it, because we also don't want to do it ad hoc and willy-nilly. This is people's lives we're helping. So we want to be thoughtful about it. In terms of the way that you guys can help out, and I would love to have you guys on board as potential mentors. Like if there's a vlogging or blogging track, you guys would be the preeminent instructors for sure. Certainly if there is a white short sleeve button down shirt convention, you guys would crock that as well too.
We didn't include that in the calendar invite. There was a dress code for this.
There was a dress code and you clearly missed it. So.
Exactly. But no, stuff like that, right? This is very much a labor of love and it's a community building effort.
Yeah.
And, the thing I love about this space is that everyone is just so generous with their time and energy that we would be remiss to not include everyone and everybody who's in the creator economy space.
We do have, by the way, plans. Ken and I are, tirelessly putting more stuff out. We are planning a new show here that hopefully will start this month. That's actually going to be office hours for creators.
Oh, cool. I love that.
Yeah. And the goal being, much to the point that you're having, is to have a bunch of the experts that we know and mentors that we know that can offer advice where creators can come. But the goal being to do it in public so that everyone can learn from this sort of conversation, right? So we want to give you the fast pass.
Very much appreciate
and
that.
Fast track to one, help us in those calls, but also I think to bring the crew through if they need help.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I know as I've gotten older, I've realized what my competitive advantage is, like what my unique selling position is. And for me, it's just connecting people, right? And so, I'm not an expert in putting creative stuff together. Like I'm just not. But I love being around creative people and I love helping them enable their dreams and connecting them with people that can, empower their dreams. And so, I'm very grateful for that opportunity to potentially work with you guys to, help you guys work with our creators.
Yeah. And for anyone listening, by the way, I know there's obviously the space is huge and there's so many angles to it. Are there any particular kinds of mentors you're hoping to have more expertise on?
Yeah, I think one is just like practical people, such like you guys who are in the trenches doing this stuff. Like, hey, this mic just went bust. Like, what do I do now? Or like, how do I vamp for the next
Right.
minute? And figures out what's going on with his whatever. Like that stuff is super critical. Where we definitely want to spend a lot of time, and where kind of again my unique background comes in is people who want to help creators run a business. And by run a business, it's not just like, I signed up on Shopify and I'm doing this. It's like, all right, dude, like, do you understand like where your supply chain is coming from? Do you understand like how to set up an LLC versus an S Corp or C Corp? Do you actually understand like how to read this brand agreement? You just got a takedown notice. Like, what does that mean for you? Stuff like that. That is a little bit, you can find it out by yourself, but it's very much a wild west, if you will. And so just having like a one-stop resource where we can at least point you in the right direction, or at least allay some of your fears. That is kind of, where I see us spending a lot more of our time.
So do you, I mean, Greg was asking more about like the mentors, like the individual, like individual mentors. Do you see at some point you partnering with builders or other creators in that space? Because to what you're talking, that litany of stuff that you just laid out is very much things that I think entrepreneurs, normal entrepreneurs, have to deal with, right? I think you're talking about how to set up an LLC and everything like that. I'm like, hi, yeah, I've had to do that before. I still have no idea how to do that.
Right.
I'm not sure I want to do it now, but in case like Steven, you and I are going to be emailing quite often and figuring this stuff out. Right. But you're talking about with like how to interact with brands and whatnot. You and Antonio are just two people, right? And you don't, to be honest, you may not know everything about, the creator space, and that's fine. So, and then we've already said that you're going to be looking at different partners and connecting people, that you're building up a network. That's going to be a powerful thing. And so do you anticipate some of those partners being things like a creator economy talent agency, or entrepreneurs that are building these type of things, like past guests that we may have had on our show that are building interesting stuff, that are investing in NFTs, that are building on the blockchain, or actual creators themselves? Like, do you anticipate kind of reaching out and saying, hey, can you all help me out with this? And because we have people that can, because then you're building a stronger community. Is that something that's in the pipeline for you guys?
1,000%. And as I mentioned at the outset, we've had a number of builders who are people of color who've reached out and said, how can we help you? Right? Like, this is the Avengers. Like, how can we help out Wakanda? Like, how can we come to your aid? And certainly, yeah, I mean, I'm currently on deck right now, thinking about what I want to do next. And one of the great resources, besides the community and the structure that they provide, is just frankly like the free stuff, and like just like the connections to companies that can help you out, whether it's with accounting or marketing, et cetera. And so, yeah, I mean, if you talked about the advocacy part in the prior conversation we had, Ken, I'd say the more critical part besides the advocacy is just like, how do we just help you across the boards? And that's when we involve partners. I think I can speak for Antonio when I say that we don't have a monopoly on good ideas. And so, all ideas are welcome, all partners are welcome. This is an effort that I think, is focused on the Black community, but certainly is something that can be broadcast out to, other broader communities that ultimately need the kind of work that we're working on.
You touched a little bit on this a few times, and I was just curious to hear, what are your thoughts on this sort of Web3 evolution and sort of the role, I think, in sort of democratizing, sort of access, opportunity, et cetera? How do you see this playing out? And do you have any creators that are already actively doing any of these things?
Not as of yet. I would say I know probably one or two builders who are building for that. They're building, the Web 3.0 for kind of fan engagement and tokens, et cetera. I'm a big believer in the space. Definitely. I think by virtue of being in the creator economy, I think you have to, like, otherwise they kick you out of the club. But certainly I'm a big fan. I think particularly because
I bought my first NFT yesterday.
You did? Oh, what'd you buy?
It's an alien.
Okay. Was it part of like
it's an artist illustrator, but very interesting. Like, I mean, I probably lost as much as the thing cost, like in fees, but it was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I am curious. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say, like, what do you think? What are you hoping for?
Yeah, so the way that I envision this happening, and again, this is more, I probably view it more from the traditional media sense, just as I spend most of my brain and time there. But talking to a lot of my friends and clients who are in the traditional media sense, they see the opportunity in terms of like, this is just found money in terms of NFTs and et cetera. But I think we got to think past the art and the collectibles component of it. I think you guys probably know this better than I do. I think the real opportunity is the utility and functionality of some of these tokens and NFTs, where they will open up fan experiences, branded opportunities, backstage to this, X to that. In fantasy, they can open up if Ronaldo scores a goal, the NFT does X, Y, Z through the programmable contracts. But then the third order of that is like a new business model entirely. So you're seeing that in gaming with play to earn. You're seeing that where you can have royalties that are tied to some of these contracts. And so I think it really opens up the opportunity, particularly for traditional media companies, to engage with their fans, but then also like hopefully like peel back a little bit of the centralization and like the gatekeeping that they've historically had, because they ultimately will have to, because this new technology is going to open up everyone's mind to like what new possibilities are, similar to the way that the internet did. And I think that's going to be great for creators, because they'll actually be able to better engage as well with fans, but also frankly with bigger media companies and bigger brands that are that are going to want to have their expertise and their knowledge with regards to Web 3.0.
So that was you raise another good point there. I want to follow up on that. Is you were talking about earlier in the show the inequities between Black creators and it was specifically with brands, right? With brand deals and everything like that. And you also brought up that how creators are they need to diversify their they can't just be like, oh, we're all in on YouTube. Like they got to go off YouTube and do like merchandise or courses or X, Y, and Z. All great. I think those are universal, but all things being equal, they're not equal, right? And so how are you in this conversation about decentralization and Web3? How much of that would you be pushing on the creators that are coming into, that are joining you in this early stage? Because there might be thinking like, oh, how do I set up this LLC, or how do I do this landing page? Like very super basic stuff. Like I just want to get up and running.
Right.
But they may not be thinking like, oh, well, I can just create this and I'll have a brand deal with like Tide or with GoPro or whatever, right? But they're not thinking like the realities of everything. They're not thinking of a much bigger picture on how to basically own their presence instead of having it being dictated by a brand or some other outside forces. Like how much are you advocating on that part?
In terms of that they should be using Web3, if I understand the question correctly.
And just in terms of embracing the decentralization, embracing diversifying their portfolio, if you will, right?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, there's probably two questions in that, or two ways to look at it. One, I think that creators at the end of the day, they just want to get paid. So whether you told them it was through PayPal versus tokens, like they're fine with it. I think the bigger challenge is like, how do you get the fans to go through this Web 3.0 type stuff, right? So you got to download a wallet, you got to figure out what your key is, you got to remember your key phrase. So that's the biggest issue. It's so horrible. Yeah, it's just like the UI UX is just not there yet across the board, right? And so I think getting the creators is probably the easy part, but the creators are not going to follow unless the fans are there. And right now the fans are just there's so much education that needs to get done. So frankly, I'm not really touching that area with Black Creator Crew as of yet, because I just think like it's important that they know about it, and if those who want to lean in, for sure.
But I mean, I don't think that necessarily their holy grail of sorts, or their benchmark should be like, hey, I'm starting off, and oh, you know what? I just want to do brand deals. Like that's where I'm going to get my money from. That's where I'm going to get rich off of. And like that could be the case, right? I mean, there's some that are doing well, quotation well, right? But many are not, right? And so
most are not, though, right?
Right, most are not. And it gets
definitely not.
This study. You remember these Influencer Marketing Hub had done that study, right? Yeah. And there's
below the poverty line or something. Like
46% of creators have been building an audience for 4+ years, earn over 20,000 annually.
And it's and if you break it down by race, it's probably a lot lower, right? Based on race or whatever, right? I mean, and that's just me. I don't know for sure. But I'm assuming, right? So when they come to you, right, and they're thinking, oh, we're going to do a brand deal. It's like, should they not also be thinking, like, maybe it's like, sure, you can go do these brand deals, and certainly you have the expertise. You and Antonio have that expertise to say, okay, here's how you get the brands, and then you know how brands are thinking, and you're educating brands on how to diversify their choice of who they work with, which is great. But maybe it's also like telling the creators, hey, you don't have to necessarily work with brands. That's not should be your end all be all monetization goal. But here's things that you should be doing. Like maybe think about doing like a creator coin, or setting up your own merch, or doing this course, or XY, all this other stuff. Like, is that I think that might be the way. I don't know if that's
but I think it's like career planning, kind of back to our high school analogy, right?
Yeah.
Ken, because I think, Steven, you can confirm or deny this, but for one, I have a little bit of a bias. I think like all creator tools should largely focus on cash orientation first, because we need to get people to the point that they can go from passion or side hustle to sort of part-time to full-time, right? Like, and that part is still fundamentally broken, right? And a bunch of crypto with high gas fees does not pay your rent, right? But I do think, to Ken's point, and maybe you've seen this as well, the starting point and the journey you plan should be intentional, right? Because as we know, it's gotten harder to get to very large audience now, right? Like you don't just get big. Like, I mean, that's all BS as far as I'm concerned. Like that's not what you should bet on. And so the question is, do I have a unique insight? Like, do I start by monetizing my enthusiasm and to a small community? Do I start by monetizing some expertise I'm bringing to the table? I think we don't do enough of that kind of planning with creators. Heather, I think, does a good job of this, and she's advising her clients. But this part is missing, I think, because right now there's this false notion of get big, get rich,
right,
as sort of the overarching strategy. But I don't think that that's true anymore.
It's definitely not true. I mean, there's so many stories you read about. Again, a New York Times article I was reading where somebody had 1 million followers on pick whatever platform, and someone pulls up to like get lunch, and that person is serving them, and they're like, "Wait, how are you like 1 million followers and you are
expectation reality?"
Yeah. So no, you guys are totally right, and and the flip side is too, right? Like where you can have someone who has no followers but is a millionaire because they are able to. They're smart, right? Yeah. They've experimented. And so, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these creators are entrepreneurs, or at least they're entrepreneurial. And being an entrepreneur, as you guys know, is a lot of experiments.
Yeah.
You got to find out what your product market fit is, your founder market fit, your creator market fit. So whether you are good on YouTube versus TikTok, or whether you are a writer versus whatever, you got to find out what that niche is, that niche product is for you. And so I totally encourage all creators to find out what that is and diversify your income stream. I do it myself, right? You got to have something. As we saw in the pandemic, stuff can get shut down.
Yeah.
If we tell everybody to diversify your bonds, why would you not diversify your number one revenue source?
No, we are coming close on time. It's been such an interesting conversation, but we do have one question that we try to ask at the end.
Okay.
For everyone. It's a new trend starting today. But
we always ask it.
We've done it in random places, but now we're trying to do it at the end. But what advice do you have for builders trying to help creators advance their efforts, right? So now, And in particular, I think, someone who's trying, inserting themselves kind of at the nexus of like, people of color and sort of like seeing the kinds of challenges they're having. How do builders, one, not build bias into the things they're making, right? And then also, I guess the second part is just broadly speaking, are there capabilities that you still feel are missing that you haven't seen someone servicing yet?
Ooh, great question. So my advice to builders would be to, at least in the beginning, to like niche down, meaning like you can't serve everybody. So, Ken, you mentioned like, hey, like what is your target or what is your go to market? Ours now has to be, Black creators. I think I see a lot of creators builders that fail to kind of figure out what exactly their niche is, and you can't serve everybody. So I'd say that, and then particularly as things that are needed to better serve creators of color, I think we have to figure out discovery. There's been so much beef across the board, not just from creators of color, around with the algorithm and how fickle.
When you say discovery, can you unpack that just a little?
Yeah, I just think depending on the platform, it's just hard. Like I think TikTok does a great job, but like I'm just using OnlyFans, so that's top of mind for me right now. OnlyFans discovery is horrible. My firm, we are working with them on a lot.
There's no discovery, right? I mean,
exactly, right? There's zero discovery, and even on YouTube, if I watch 2 videos, God forbid one of them is like QAnon, and before you know it, I'm indoctrinated with like QAnon videos. So there has to be some kind of like better way to find people, again, I'm not an AI scientist, but there's got to be a better way to like make the algorithm a little bit more equitable and, a little bit better for most people. And then I think your second question was around, like what other advice I would give people is be super empathetic. For me, I'm not directly connected to creators outside the Black creator crew, but my ears and heart are open to their concerns and needs, right? Something as simple as how do I fix this thumbnail can mean, oh my God, now I'm getting discovered, and now that means food on my table, right? And so you can't take those small things inconsequentially, because those things can mean a lot. And for me, I'm fortunate enough that I have a great job and I don't have to worry about buying a camera for $200. But if I'm an 18-year-old kid, creating great content out of my mom's bedroom, that $200 might be months of work. Yeah. So that's the stuff I don't take. Like I don't take lying down, and so you have to be super empathetic in terms of how you build stuff that is relevant for these creators.
So Steven, where do people find more information about what you're doing and how they can help?
Yeah, so blackcreatorcrew.com is the best way. Sign up there. Again, we're still fielding requests and everything else like there. So just be patient with us. This is, as I mentioned, a labor of love, as we have our day jobs and side hustles as well too. I'm on Twitter at Steven Sunmonu. I have a LinkedIn, but I don't think anyone is on LinkedIn.
Well, I mean, that's where I post my stories
right now. Exactly, so someone's going to find you.
Exactly, which I think actually is a very underrated opportunity for people who like want to get their voice out there. LinkedIn, because there's just so much garbage out there that if you are coherent and value add, you can add a lot of value.
For sure. Well, Steven, I can say certainly you have Ken and I as allies to help in any way we can. We certainly hope you will join us as well for the new show soon.
1,000%.
We'd love to have honestly, the thing that's holding us up from starting is we want to make sure we have a lineup of creators who want advice first before we actually commit to starting that new show up. But we will definitely be pinging you and bringing you into the fold for more and more of the things we're doing as well.
And be sure to check about the dress code in advance.
Exactly. Hey guys, this is my first live vlog, podcast, whatever you want to call it. So appreciate it.
Get out. All right. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you spending that time with us.
Appreciate it.
So thank you, everybody. While we are here, how do I get these things right? Here we go. So next week, we do have our friend Jim Louderback will be joining us from VidCon. We've had to reschedule. It's so amazing, right, Ken? Like when we started this, we had no idea like if we could figure out next week, and now we're figuring out November. Right. And
I'm like thinking like, do we have more people? Are we ready? Should we be thinking about December right now?
Oh, by the way, I did just fill November 3rd also.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, Jim is going to be joining us next week for an interview. And we're going to be following up and talking. If you have questions, by all means, shoot them over to us over from our created.show. There's a question box there. Of course, you feel free to email us if that is more helpful. But Jim will be joining us next week. We'll be talking about VidCon. We're talking about virtual. We're talking about a lot of things, a lot of interesting things to go over with Jim as well. And of course, the show continues, right? So we'll see you on Friday for Creative Briefs. We have Lilian Scott from the LilyPad Network on the 15th, Josh Constine on September 22nd, and then Justin Moore on September 29th. Like I said, we are booked up all the way through November 3rd, I believe, right now.
Yep.
But if you'd like to join afterwards, now, not to say, though, that when we launch the new show, creators can get on anytime. They'll be able to pop in and just get advice from our friends. But if you do want to be a guest or think someone that could be a good guest, send them over to creativeeconomy.com/guest list. That's going to be the best way to find it. We are not doing After Dark today because I have to run downtown to do a pitch on Zealous. So we will be back next week for that, but we'll see you Friday for sure. Steven, thank you once again. It was a true pleasure having you here with us. We welcome it. Really informative, and I hope everyone is opening their eyes and thinking a little bit harder about how we can help other creators out. And with that, I will say goodbye. Ken, any last words?
Not much, but thanks very much, Steven, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you on Friday at 8 a.m. for talking about the creator news, and it'll be a great one.
8 a.m. Pacific time.
8 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.